We are so excited to have you here today. We're going to be learning, well, it's building upon what we were learning about last week, but we have a special guest with us today. My name is Georgia. I'm the training manager here at Mozenda, and we also have Brian Anderson here from our engineering team. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks, Georgia.
You're so welcome. We're going to be talking, today's topic is express yourself. We've all had those moments where we wish we could say something just a little bit better, and just with Mozenda, where we have those moments where we want to just capture something a little bit more refined. So last week we talked about how when we refine data in the builder, this is to minimize the post-processing of data. We use our node property selector as well as our refined capture text in order to get the information we need. But
yeah, Georgia, you remember that the node property selector is only in our new Chromium, so in our beta version. So that's important to know as well.
So if you're not seeing the node property selector, you should upgrade your builder to the Tesla of all data scraping. It will have more of this black feel to it, and has just better capabilities as far as selecting the HTML node properties.
Yeah, it's built on the back end of Chromium instead of IE, and so a lot of websites are moving away from IE, and IE is kind of losing its ground on being able to support different technologies. And if you look at ECMAScript 6 standards of JavaScript, IE is only 9, 10, 11% compatible with new JavaScript standards, and Chromium, however, is now 98, 99% compatible with that. And so as a company, we've decided to move in that direction so that we can become more compatible with the whole rest of the internet.
Yeah, and more websites, so you can get data
Absolutely.
in more places. That's awesome. So as you're working with, when you select an item in Mozenda, we first are being told where to look for the information, and that comes into your XPath. Your XPath is where your data is found, and it creates this path in order to find the data. Next, the node property selector allows you to display what node in the final export or output of your data. So this could be the href for the URL. This could be an attribute that's attached to the node as well. And if we want to get even more refined, we can go into our refined capture text. That has our text and our HTML view where we can apply changes and define exactly what we want to be captured, and we can target those specifically. We are able to, well, I guess today our main purpose is to understand when, why, and how to use regular expression. This is a really sophisticated form of parsing information. When we use regular expression, it's similar to our capture definitions, and that's what we're going to be mainly discussing today. So if you are familiar with getting to the refined capture text, when we get into our capture definition, this first text box is telling you the content of which you are capturing. The second is going to be the field name or what you're defining this text as, and then you have a preview of that at the end. I had been playing around with Mozenda, and I noticed this checkbox over here on the right hand side, and I clicked it one day and it switched into this language that absolutely terrified me, and so I quickly switched it back. But as I became more familiar, I learned from our support team as well as from our other teams here at Mozenda that this regular expression is expressing the same text as here in the capture fields. It's just written in regular expression. When we are using our capture definitions for maybe you're refining a capture text or you're capturing an address and a phone number, Mozenda's pretty smart, and it can recognize when you have some fields that it's familiar with. Maybe it's address, city, state, zip code. And if that's the case, we can check that box and save it as a canned expression. This is saved specifically in regular expression because it's more sophisticated. It's able to use these predetermined or predefined expressions to find a specific format. And in this case, it's looking for a United States address. And we can see this says zip code, and it's looking for specific numbers or digits that match the format of zip codes here in the United States. When we use regular expression, we're looking to find patterns in text. And as we're finding these patterns in text, we're allowing, or while we're writing our regular expression, that helps Mozenda know what to capture on its side. With our regular expressions, there are resources available all over the internet because regular expressions is a universal language. We're able to use the resources available online. So even if I've included this as a resource. This is on Microsoft.com, the .NET regular expression. A lot of our material today is going to be covered from here, specifically showing this so that you guys know where you can refer back to while you're using Mozenda and when you want to learn more or you have any questions. Anything can practically be Googled, which is amazing. We're going to discuss a little bit more about the syntax and the uses as far as it relates to the definitions with the characters that are used in regular expression. I always like to say the ABCs of regular expression, are always be capturing.
Come on, Georgia. Really? Always be capturing?
I feel like it was like a really good catchphrase, because we're like getting information.
Shouldn't it just be always use regex? Just makes it so much simpler.
That is true, because if I've tried to learn regular expressions multiple times, and every time I stop using it, that's when I forget it.
Yeah, when I started at Mozenda, 6.5, 7 years ago, my manager told me he challenged me to always write regular expressions in all my capture definitions. And that's how I, learned it, became fairly proficient at it.
Yeah.
And so it's about practice. So if you're always writing it, you're going to get better at it.
I love using or sharing personal experiences here at Mozenda because the way that our customers, you all, use Mozenda is very similar to how we use it. It's not like we have a secret back boy button in order to get information. We've just practiced doing it more. So it's good to know that when you're using regular expression or as you're using Mozenda, everybody is going to be learning at different levels and we can build upon our experiences. With the ABCs, we do have some that are applicable to regular expression. First, acquire a target. Always decide where you want to get your information.
Yeah, what are you trying to get? What are you trying to capture? If you don't know what you're getting, it's hard to know what you're going to capture, and it's hard for you to figure out how to add it to Mozenda to make it worth your while. And that comes down to, as Georgia's already prepped us, to our XPath, to our node properties. Are we going to choose a specific text property that we're going to go after, or are we going to go with inner text or outer HTML? And then what do we want to parse from that capture? What do we want to get out of it? So knowing that is really your first battle.
I love that. The second is be patient. And Brian, you actually brought this one up, didn't you?
Yeah, why do you think be patient is important?
Because it's a learning curve.
Absolutely. Regex can be difficult. It can be hard. It is a very powerful language. It's a very powerful tool. But you know what? There's some hard things with it. It can do incredible things, but it also takes some time to learn the syntax, understand it. So everyone just needs to be patient with where they're at, what they can do, and what they can learn. I know that Georgia is still learning every day. Our support guys are still learning every day. And it's good for them to have challenges so that they can learn even more things. And so I believe in them. I believe that they can solve pretty much any problem that comes up, um, as long as Regex can handle it.
Hmm. And so being able to have patience with yourself so that when you are trying something new, you allow yourself the time to fail and to succeed as well and celebrate those moments. And it comes back to the letter C, which is check your cheat sheet. As you're looking online, when you're checking those cheat sheets and looking to see what's available, these resources um, online are related to regular expression and can be applied into Mozenda because we're using a language that is universal. So as you allow yourself time to be patient, look to those cheat sheets and be willing to just try it, then the more likely you are to succeed and become better at it.
Absolutely. I enjoy reading the Microsoft.NET Regex cheat sheet. And maybe that's because that's the nerd in me.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I enjoy it. There's other resources out there that help. When I first started, I would Google it. I'd say, how do I capture this with Regex? And there's a lot of stuff on Stack Overflow. There's a whole bunch of resources out there, people asking the same questions. And usually you can, if you know enough, kind of what we're going to be talking about today, you can usually shoe it in and use it as part of our stuff. As Georgia was saying, we do use the .NET regex, which is a little bit different than even the JavaScript regex and PHP regex. They have their own subtle differences. However, most of the time, it's very, very similar, and you can make it work.
Yeah. I love how we're building the foundation so that when we are trying to troubleshoot with regular expressions or we're trying to refine our captures, this will give us the groundwork, what we discussed today, in order to
move forward.
Yeah, to
Absolutely.
move forward.
This won't be like in depth, crazy. We're going to do, some negative look aheads and whatever,
Yeah.
but we're going to give you the tools to understand what you're looking at and to see the patterns, understand and read irregular expressions and say, okay, I remember seeing that, hey, that's a capture group, or a dot means this. And so when we do that, you step into this language having a base understanding of what it is.
Yeah, I love that. Some of the basics that we're going to be talking about today are character escapes, character classes, anchors, grouping, and quantifiers, and how these all relate to not just regular expression, but also to Mozenda.
Absolutely. So we have escape characters. A backslash in regular expression typically means that the next character following it is either special or it is a character that regular expression uses, and you want it to actually be interpreted as a literal.
Like
Okay.
that backslash S, it means.
Okay, backslash S means space, white space.
So if I do backslash S.
Okay, if you do backslash S, you will actually get a literal backslash followed by a literal S.
That's awesome. That makes sense to me. So when the character follows the backslash, that is normally a literal character. We have both special and literal characters as we're using characters in our regular expression syntax.
Yes.
Okay.
And so knowing those, it's important, but sometimes it's a little bit hard. Here's some examples of those: backslash N, backslash R, backslash T. These are saying, hey, these are special characters, special things that say, I want to, just special formatting that says, hey, regex, here's what I really mean. So if you want to just literally do an N, just type an N.
Okay.
You don't need to do a backslash N because it will think it's a new line character.
Got it.
So it tries to be smart about that. Okay, character classes. So, Giorgio, when you think of a character and you think of class, what do you think of?
I honestly think of Disneyland.
Awesome.
I think of just how there's different type of characters when I go into the park. I'm going to have like the superheroes, I'm going to have the princesses, and they're going to be in different parts of the park. Um, and so when I think of character classes as it relates to character classes in my Disneyland experiences, I think of just having like an organized flow in order to find those set of characters. And maybe I organize my day to meet all the princesses first and then meet all the Jedis in the new Star Wars land.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So regex is, it's pretty much the same. It's saying I have a group of things and I want to match against that group. That's a character class. So you can have a group or even that matches a single character or multiple characters. Okay. You can also have a character group that says, guess what? My children hate going and,
they don't want to see any villains.
They don't want to see the villains. Why would they want to see those? I don't want to see them. It's no fun.
Yeah.
I want to be happy.
Yeah.
And so in this group, you can say, I'm going to negate it. And to negate it, I'm using the caret here.
So as it relates to Mozenda, if there was a group of text that was before my targeted piece of information that was consistent, it was a consistent pattern, then I could use a negative character group to say, look for these characters, remove those characters from my capture, and then capture the stuff I do want.
I can get them out. Yep.
Awesome.
I can say, I do not want to capture that if it contains that. Absolutely. Okay. Ranges. Oh, ranges are fun. There's nothing better than a good range of letters, numbers, characters. You get so many things. So regex in .NET land is case insensitive or case sensitive inherently. Does that make sense, Giorgio?
Yeah. So my capital letters, lowercase letters, it doesn't matter, or
it does matter.
It does matter.
Case does matter. Now you can, and this we could talk about this in another training, but there is a way that you can make your capture and your regex case insensitive. So that's kind of a cool thing to kind of know about.
Yeah.
But right now, knowing that it is case sensitive, you have to include as capture groups, if you want all to match one uppercase letter, it's going to say A through Z or all of these other things. So
there are these ranges, like if I did capital A to lowercase c, I feel like that would include a different range than just this A to Z format.
Absolutely. Yeah, it will include all capital and all lowercase if you did that.
And there's a regular expression, or there's a language that regular expression uses, or a table that it uses. So if I select A through lowercase z, capital A through lowercase z, it's going to be selecting all of these characters. I know that there's a resource online that if you do have specific questions on what this format would be, if I used A to capital A to lowercase z, you can see which characters are going to be selected in that range of letters and numbers.
Yeah, we can show that a little bit of resource later. And that's on a resource called Regex 101 that I like. It is a PHP. It's not exactly .NET, but it's so close to it that it really matches up quite well. And it's how I learned how to do it.
That's awesome.
So Wildcard.
I love the Wildcard.
Yeah, there's the Wildcard will match every single character except for new line. That's a .NET regex rule. And so using a dot means anything that's there except for new line, go for it.
That's awesome. Here's some more examples of character classes. This is coming directly from our regular expression language on Microsoft. And so if you have more questions specifically about these character classes and their descriptions, as well as some patterns to use and match those. This table is available online. We talked about the character group, negative character group, character ranges with this A to Z, and our wildcard. We can also do these ones listed before for or below with single characters in the Unicode general category. I haven't used those a lot specifically yet. Have you used them quite a bit?
Yeah, I've used those. Um, it's kind of rare to use them, but it can be done, and it does handle it properly.
There's some other examples when it comes to those characters that we discussed a little bit earlier, as far as match any non-white space, a decimal digit, or just a normal digit so that we can see that.
Correct.
Now on to capture groups.
Okay, capture groups. This is probably the most important part, right, of Mozenda.
Yeah.
Probably, because this is how you're going to set your fields. This is how you parse your data out of your stuff. Now, capture groups in Mozenda are typically, you have your unnamed and you have your named. So you have a special one called %ignore%, which does special things, which says, hey, ignore all of this text and make it so before I get to my bookends of my field, and then grab my field and then move on.
We mentioned this briefly last time on our training. That ignore field, this is in our, I just want to point out that these are written in our normal capture definitions format.
Yeah.
These aren't in regular expressions, but as Brad and I mentioned earlier, anything that is in our normal capture definition, our computer or the Mozenda is going to transfer those into regular expression, and it's the same when it runs through the process.
So these capture groups on the back end of Mozenda get transformed into regular expression so that the computer can understand what it's trying to parse.
Beautiful. Our unnamed capture groups are, this is the similar expression where Brian just mentioned, where we have our ignore expression. We'll go over some more examples a little bit later so that you guys can see that. This is an example of our named expression. This is the regular expression.
That's how you would write it as a regular expression, and that's pretty much what it gets transformed to back as a field name. Okay, we'll definitely show that in the builder here in a little bit. So now quantifiers. So we have groups, we have characters. Now we have quantifiers. Quantifiers tell you how many, or a range of how many, to accept as it relates to the capture group.
Because I noticed when I was using the capture definitions inside Mozenda and I wasn't using any regular expressions, sometimes when I type a character, say I'm looking for, we'll just use the example of price, but price is written twice into the capture text that I have, and so it finds that first instance of price. So using the quantifiers, I'd be able to note that I want the second instance of that occurrence.
Yeah, you can decide how many characters you want to include.
Got it.
Okay, so there's many different ways, many different quantifiers. The first one, and probably most common, is the asterisk, star. Okay, the star means 0 to infinity. Okay, we'll get into the greedy and lazy here in a little bit, but let's go down the list. Plus, match 1 to many, 1 to infinity. Question mark is kind of your quote unquote optional. So 0, it can be there, it can't be there. The fun one is when you get the brackets here, is when you can say, I want it to do 5 times, n number of times. You can also do at least n number of times, or between a range of characters. So like on our canned expressions for address, on the zip code, like Georgia said, we have a quantifier that says a zip code in the United States can either have 4 digits or 5 digits. And so we do a match there. So greedy means regex is inherently greedy, and it will always, it starts from right to left, top to bottom of your text that it's given. And it will go until it finds the next pattern. And so greedy says, I'll go as far as I can all the way through this until I get to my pattern.
Okay. Lazy
means I'm going to go as far as I get until I find the pattern, which is different, right? So I'm going to go all the way until I find the last instance of the pattern, whereas lazy is different. It takes the first instance of the pattern and lets you go through.
That's a lot of control when you're looking for your like target piece of data. You want to parse it out.
Yep, it's very important to understand that, and there's some subtleties there, but yet again, be patient and practice.
Like it. So here's some Mozenda application, how it relates to you. The equivalent expression in Mozenda capture definition is formatted into regular expression. So when we are capturing it here, just using capture definitions, I have my percentage signs, and then I'm using my landmark here in order to capture that information. I transferred it into regular expression, and so I'm able to say, look for this word, then look for a new line, and then capture the text as my field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we can look and see that we have our text here, we have our character, and a comma. So we have a new line expression. We now have our capture group. Our named capture group is what it's called in regular expression. And this is the syntax of that with your field name in here. And then your definition of characters that is allowed to be within, and 0 to infinity of those characters, all the way to this, which means the end of the document. Well, there's some subtlety there, but typically end of the text in which you're given in your content.
Oops, sorry.
Okay. Okay. So now let's look at this piece right here directly. This is saying any character or a new line or a carriage return.
So that straight line is our way to say or. So we're adding some different conditions on that capture. So It's not just one thing that's end all be all. I can add some different layers to it as well.
Yeah, that's called a pipe delimiter. And in regex, you have the ability to concatenate all of these things together. And so when regex comes along, it's reading down your line and it's saying, hey, I am looking for this word followed by a comma, followed by a new line. When it finds it, it says, hey, okay, I have a capture group here that says, cool, I'm going to capture group all of this, anything that is a new line, any character, any carriage return, up to 0 to infinity of them until I get to the end.
Got it. So I love that. That excites me because there's so many times where I've been working with just a block of text or information that is hard to get the information because it needs specific parameters around it in order to return the targeted information. So this allows us to have quite a bit of control.
Okay.
This is just when it comes back to initiate or terminate. With our capture definitions, we use targeted text in order to identify where we want to capture that information. When it was in our paragraph example, we used the word and then we created a new line. And when it comes to regular expression, we can create those same like terminate and initiate, like initiate the capture from this point and terminate when you get to the end.
Yeah, which is exactly what you see. You see your initiate here, you say, you got to bookend your capture definitions, right? You got to tell the computer, this is where I want to start, this is where I want to end. If you don't do that, then it's going to be greedy and it's going to take everything there and capture it. So if you're trying to parse it, you want to get as specific as possible, but also generic enough that it will work for all of the pages that your agent will encounter.
Because again, we're looking for patterns, and if we're getting multiple items, we want to find the patterns
Correct.
across the board.
Yeah, Regex has a lot of flexibility. You can do a lot of cool things. You can also do a lot of dumb things. And, you got to be smart about what you're doing. Generically, we add the dot pipe delimiter /n, pipe delimiter /r to 0 to infinity and make that lazy. We do that quite often, right? Because we're trying to be as generic as possible. But it really is better to become more restrictive, to make sure that you're getting exactly what you want instead of just the shotgun approach and get everything. But as Mozenda and as we're trying to capture stuff, unless we know specifically what you're looking for, like in a zip code for the United States, we can't be specific. We got to be more generic. But as a user, I'm always writing, more detail into it so that I can get better results. So I'm making sure that I'm getting the highest quality data that I can get.
So let's practice this. I'd love to see this in Mozenda while we're trying to capture some addresses or phone numbers. If you want to try out regular expressions without going into the builder and just trying it on your own, there are some regex tutorials and regex games that you can play online that will help you practice the syntax. One of our personal favorites is the regexone.com. We were able to walk through the tutorial. It will have you select specific pieces of information and walk you through some of that logic. We're going to reformat some addresses here, and if you have any need for additional resources, then that Microsoft with the .NET regular expressions is going to be such a great resource as it comes to referring back to the special characters, learning more, and each one of the sections they have even more information just dedicated to that specific topic, whether it be quantifiers or escape characters. You can go through and learn more about those as well.
Yeah, if you really want to nerd out and have some fun, I would definitely give a read to this. I enjoy it, but I know I'm a nerd, so it's okay. Especially if you come to something you're like, I don't know how to do that, or that seems tough. Come try and look at this. See what you can find. Also, Google it. It's probably best to come here first because then you get actually some verbiage that you can Google with.
Yeah.
And by getting that verbiage, usually people online, there's an answer for you, and you can figure it out. Also, our support team is always willing to help.
They're phenomenal. Okay, we're going to jump into the builder. And we have this Yelp example. In our original refined capture text or our webinar last week, we were capturing the restaurant name, the URL, loading that URL, and then I wanted to get the address. When I went to capture the address, it was only allowing me to capture this one line of text, and then it wouldn't let me capture the suite, and the format kept changing. And so I needed to write something that was more specific in order to capture the information I needed to. We're going to go in and use regular expression to help find the format. We had a great question chatted in. They asked if with our refined capture text, if we switch it to our canned responses where we select our addresses, if we're able to modify these even though that they're canned and presented by Mozenda.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is just kind of a baseline, and you can go and modify these and fix them to how you want. This is kind of the list that's come up over the years of making it pretty good. It's not perfect because every site can display an address as they will.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of sites that maybe only give you the city and state. and then they don't give the zip. That part is not accounted for in here, but you can easily come and modify these as soon as you understand what you're looking for here.
Because now that we talked about groups, I can come over here and see that zip code is entered in right here. And if I wanted to get rid of it, I could just delete it.
Absolutely. Just delete that.
So I'm going to reassign this location. If you guys are ever having a hard time troubleshooting, and you may not be familiar with XPath, it's something a little bit outside your comfort zone. Being able to click on location, and then you can either reassign or add an alternate location for that item to see if that will help you find that text that you wanted to acquire more easily. And if not, I know that our support team and everybody, the most reliable way is to write a custom XPath, but that location tool is just a little trick.
Yeah, another quick tip here for you. If you don't want it to add this second XPath, because I know I hate that sometimes, because I want to go write my own. If I right click up here, I can turn off adding the secondary XPath.
I love that. So the first XPath is going to be relative. It finds a landmark nearby the text that you want to capture and then writes a path. The absolute starts from the very beginning of the HTML document and then goes layer by layer to find that piece of information.
So that's just kind of a pro tip there.
I like that. That was a fun one, Brian. All right, let's go in and refine this. So we are capturing the address, the suite, the state, as well as the city, and we're also getting that get directions, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Could we just do like a normal contents replacement to get rid of get directions?
Absolutely.
How does that work as far as like order of operations between capture definitions and contents replacement?
Yeah. So content replacement, all content replacements will get executed prior to running your capture definitions.
Great. So if I won't be able to do capture definition, then contents replacement. It needs to be contents replacement, and then it executes the capture definition.
Yep, content replacements will happen prior to the capture definitions.
Fantastic. I like this though, because I don't want get directions.
Well, it just muddies it up, right? So let's clean it up as best we can there. Let's come here and let's go, hey, I'm going to try.
Yeah, let's try
this. Okay. I don't want this here because it's like, oh, it's already grabbing stuff. Let's see if we can get rid of that.
So each one of these lines is showing that look for this first instance, and if you find a match, then return that information.
Absolutely. So what it does is it starts at the top and says, hey, where do I want to, let's come here.
Okay. Oh, that looks a lot more friendly. We removed that address field that we had originally, and it was still recognizing that field was present, or it was present. And so by us closing out and then reopening it, it was like a refresh button for us to see just the straight address to city, state, and zip.
Okay. So what we're doing here is it looks and says, does it match the pattern of number 1? If it does, and it says all my fields are filled out, I'm done. I bail. I've got the information I need, and I'm ready to rock and roll. Okay. If it doesn't find it, it will then move down to 2, to 3, 4, all the way down to 8 here. And if you wanted to put more below it, you can always add another one. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So let's just take a read of this top one and understand what it's looking for, right?
I think that's one of the biggest things, is just to start talking through regular expressions to become familiar with what symbols are happening.
Yeah, absolutely. So what this is saying is it says there is either a new line or starting at the beginning of the capture.
Okay.
Okay. Followed by a white space, 0 to infinity of them. Then we have a capture group, which is our first capture group of address 1. We are looking for a \D, which means a digit, plus a dot, okay? And plus means 1 to infinity. And lazy, so go up until you find as many as you can until you get to your new line or your and white space new line. Okay. You then have your white space 0 to infinity. Your address 2 does the same thing. It says, but this one is just dot. It says any character that I have that's not a new line character, include it until my first character or my first new line.
And that's helpful because we didn't include digit in that example because for address 2 we have suites. It could be a suite.
Could be,
that's the end of the
absolutely,
story.
yeah.
Yeah, or it could just be a digit.
Yeah, exactly. And so this one, they're making the assumption that the address 1 is going to start with a number, which it does in this case, but perhaps it might not somewhere else. Okay. So we look for a city. Well, a city is dot plus lazy, followed by a comma. So if the comma doesn't exist, this expression isn't going to work exactly right.
Yeah.
That makes it hard, right? Especially when you're using San Francisco, because that's 2 words. You don't know if it needs to have 2 words, 1 word for any city in the world.
Yeah.
So sometimes even regular expressions make it very difficult to capture some of this data unless the site gives you some sort of a delimiter or a boundary to be able to give it to you correctly. Okay, so followed by a 0 to infinity white spaces. We now have the state capture group, named capture group, which we are saying, hey, you must start with a capital letter followed by this is a cool little capture group right here, which says followed by a through Z or A through Z.
So that takes into account any case of
any case, yep. And 1 to infinity of that, or 1 lazy. Okay, 1 to infinity lazy. So that'll take care of, hey, if they did the abbreviation or if they did spelled California all the way out. Okay. Then it's looking for a comma here that is optional. Okay, that's what that means. Followed by 0 to infinity white space, looking for a zip code, which has \D, and then this one's specifically looking for 5 digits.
And that comes to our quantifiers.
Yep. Followed by the area, so you have your zip code and then you have your special location code, that could be 4 more digits on there,
yeah,
which is a dash, which this part right here is also lazy because of that question mark right there.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It's going to take time to walk through this, so if this still feels like a foreign language, that's okay. I would re-listen to this as often as you can, walk through it, and talk through the conversation, and see in multiple examples. Like if it doesn't find a perfect match using this first regular expression, see how the format changes based off of the regular expression that's written.
Correct, yeah.
But so, yes, it does make sense, Brian.
It is, yeah, no, it's not easy, but it is powerful.
Yeah, I love that.
And there's a lot of resources out there to help.
I love that.
So
let's save this and test our agent, because this is like predefined. So if it wasn't working, we could tweak that to fit the format that we were needing. As we test this, hopefully errors are opportunities. So hopefully we hit an error so that we can refine our either our location of where it's being captured, or we can refine how the address is being worked. I spoke too soon, everyone. If there are any specific questions, please feel free to chat those in as well. We have a monthly webinar the first Thursday of every month. This month is especially great because we have two. And look, that address came through.
Nice.
Could you explain what you did when it wasn't pulling in the information? Why you chose to execute that?
Yeah. In the new builder, in the Chromium version here, we have a new option here in our
so this is on the properties
of page 2. After loading this page, what I'm saying here is I'm going to begin processing this page as soon as the first action, XPath, is found.
So the page may not be visible to me as the end user,
but to the computer it is.
Got it.
And it's saying, hey, I'm going to wait up to a certain amount of time to keep looking for this, and as soon as I find this XPath, I'm going to move on. So you're going to make it as fast and as efficient as possible.
Love that.
So now we can see, hey, we're parsing it fairly decently. That's pretty much all you can ask for. I think that's what you want.
That's amazing. Awesome. Well, I wanted to thank everybody for joining us today. We were able to discuss quite a bit as far as it relates to regular expressions to build that foundation to practice and implement this in our own day-to-day Mozenda-ing. We are glad that Brian joined us and shared his knowledge. If you have any questions, again, please reach out to us, but remember your ABCs of Regex. Always be capturing, or if you want to be more specific, acquire a target, be patient, and always check the cheat sheet. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.